Think all you can say after this week's episode is don't mess with Kanamoney. I mean, the number of ways they find to mix and match her name between Minimori last week to Kanamoni this week, it's brilliant. I mean, I've said it since the beginning that Kanamori is my favorite character of not only this show, but this season in particular. She is amazing, she is a boss, and I have to say, not only was she inspiring in this week's episode, she was frightening on the process. I think if there's one character you really don't want to mess with or get on the bad side with, it's Kanamori. I mean, something that's always been interesting to me, because I don't live in Japan, I don't have experience with Japanese culture, is always the idea of like jobs, especially for jobs that a student has, because it seems like it's kind of like expected that you are a student, you focus on your studies, you do everything you need to do, and then you become an adult and you get your job and you work hard. And I've never had that experience, especially since I've been working since I was like 8 years old. So I've always had work in some way. It's always kind of interesting how it's either looked down upon or frowned upon. And it's like, it's super intriguing, especially because you would think, I mean, just from my point of view, like seeing kids, really taking the edge saying, hey, we want to understand business. We want to, set ourselves up for the future. But of course, as we can see with the teachers and the faculty members and things like that, it's something that's frowned upon because they have to take into consideration how it will look for the town and things like that. It's just a different culture and everyone has a different views on how to, raise the kids and things like that. So it's always been interesting to me with Japanese kind of culture and things like that in terms of their anime and movies and things like that, how they portray like part-time jobs in a way that Western media would never experience. So it's always been really fun to me. So to have someone like Kanamori who completely breaks the formula of what you're used to with anime production and how they kind of like design those students getting depressed that they can't have their work and they just kind of have to either sneak it or they just completely give up. To have Kanamori go studio shaft with head tilts in this episode of just not having any of it was amazing. I mean, the amount of time she just did not give a shit. She was slumped back, head in the air, tilted, saying one-liners to just say how stupid it was. And I gotta agree with Kanamori in this situation. She was making a lot of sense, and it just kind of felt like there was a lot of things being said, like, hey, you gotta be kids, or it's fine to, have these activities, but don't try to make money. Well, why is that an issue? We're trying to learn business. I mean, I was never taught things about taxes and stuff like that when I was in school. Why shouldn't we learn more about business rather than things you're never going to use? And they're actually being very practical because clearly these are kids who are going to grow up and work in the anime field or business field of some degree. Why not let them get the experience head first? And what's a little bit of pocket change? Why is that going to hurt? They can fund things. They can do things without the school's permission. But I guess maybe that's the issue, going against the school and not needing them as much as maybe they need you and things like that. And if you do anything and maybe get yourself into trouble with finances, maybe that's going to look bad on the school. There's just a different culture and identity. And to see how Kanamori was just shaking them down by just the number of times characters would look at her like, did she really just say that? Or is she really this upset? It was amazing because just the number of times characters would be like, what are we going to do here? And she's just thinking to herself, you know what? There's so many ways I can poke holes into this bullshit. And I love that because Kanamori is the most like, she knows who she is. She knows why she's doing it. She knows her own self-interest, but she can throw it back in your face and really make you look like a fool. But unfortunately, because they're in charge, even when they recognize that they are being fools, or this girl actually has a lot of points, because they're in charge, they don't have to say, well, your arguments are sound and just and definitely put us in our place. We're still going to say, participate in whatever you want, just don't make money. It's like, that's not going to go over well. And I always love that about this show and just how they're definitely exploring it in such a way that you typically don't see with anime. The idea of like going against part-time jobs or making money inside schools, like that's something you see with anime, especially high school anime all the time. But the way Kanamori just broke the formula down and showed us it in such a weird but super interesting in way that you kind of wish more characters would pull a Kanamoni here. I mean, that was amazing, I have to say. This episode definitely had some great moments of just more on the production side. Something I've always really enjoyed about Kanamori's leadership is how she kind of keeps everyone intact. And honestly, this crew's been functioning pretty well. We got sound here, we're trying to find freelance music to work. They're kind of getting down with it. They're like, hey, let's make a dance scene for the final moment, which is kind of cool. It's different than what we've seen. We're thinking, okay, that sounds right. And Kanamori, once again, not having any of it. I love how she's very much like that ruler with an iron fist. She knows how stupid a lot of this is because it's like, yeah, you're just coming up with ideas, and if I let you do whatever you want, you would just have a million ideas and nothing would be finished. It would basically be like an artist with 1,000 paintings, but only half the canvas at best was filled on each one. And you know damn well they're never getting back to finishing up the painting because they'll just keep starting new ones. It's really interesting how a lot of the ideas that get kind of proposed are interesting and they sound like they make great projects, but that doesn't fit the current project. And I love how Kanamori is just like, by the end, like, she's literally ready to smack sense. I mean, we're strangling characters, we're smacking characters. It feels like, we gotta do things right here, so stop goofing around. So it was really fun to see how, there's definitely a lot more stricter leadership going on in this episode, which was very fun and kind of a contrast to Kanamori's always been that kind of hardened ruler, but I don't think she's been, that vicious and especially that blunt with some of these characters. Especially saying like, Midori, why are you here? You have no interest, no point in being in the sound department right now. Go finish your work. And she's like, well, maybe I could find some ideas. And a lot of these ideas I think would be great. Like I feel like the amount of ideas that get proposed by these characters is 5 seasons worth of content to make, but it's like a matter of take the good ideas you have, how does that work? And I love how probably most viewers watching were probably pretty on board with a lot of like what was being proposed. And then Kanamori would just say, hey, what does the alien look like? Why are they fighting? Why would they join? Why this? Why this? Why this? You're the director, stop being stupid. It's like, okay, I was kind of getting bought in. I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea. It seems like we're getting that magical animation. We're seeing the creation come to life. And then Kanamori brings us back down to reality. This is stupid and you haven't actually thought it all out. Because what will a viewer watching think? They'll see like, okay, why is there a human-looking guy in a UFO? Why are they joining forces? The viewers will hate it even if it looks pretty. I think a big reason why their previous projects worked so well was either there was a lack of story or just the things that we did see, it made a lot more sense because of what it was clearly aimed to be. A mecha fighting a monster kind of explains itself. But if you're gonna go with something like alien invasion and you're kind of mixing and matching all these ideas, you gotta have something a bit more serious to it. So I do like the leadership and how there definitely is conflicting ideas and how this kind of does feel like a miniature anime team where there's probably going to be people who want to do one thing for a long time and director's going to come in and say, that's stupid, we're wasting time, focus on this one idea. And it's really nice to see how the show continues to find new ways to explore that leadership concept and just the idea that it's not just completely focused in on the anime side of things, but actually, because they're students, they have to deal with the school and the town and things like that, or just how are they going to finance things? How are they going to deal with things because they are young? They aren't adults. They don't have, their name out there yet. The idea of keeping Mizusaki, in the modeling industry from time to time, making her still work herself to the bone, but making sure her name is still going to be name recognition. Like, there's just a lot of interesting ideas being explored, and this was a very business-focused episode, but I like that. I mean, with last week and just the backstory with Kanamori, it was great to see more on the business side of things and to see it more on the present and just a lot of struggles that are going on. It's really great to see how the show continues to spice up things that are generally pretty dry and boring. I don't have much interest in the business side of things in most departments, most areas, most mediums. I just don't find it that intriguing. But if anime handles it right, and there's been some select cases that have really done it justice, it can be really intriguing and show you sides to not only just anime, but just how people grow up in different cultures and how they overcome struggles and shortcomings and things like that. That's why this episode was really interesting to me. I mean, the more Kanamori, the better for me. I mean, Kanamori could be the only character in the show. She could have internal thoughts to herself and just talk to herself in the mirror. That would probably be an entertaining anime by itself. She just has a presence that just radiates style and authority. So, I mean, of course, I'm gonna love that. But I mean, just all the characters and what they're doing and just to see the moments where they got the sound and things like that. It's so magical to just see the little wonders about anime production of just getting a simple alarm going off and having that just, make sure you be quiet. We want to make sure this is crystal clear. And it just feels so mesmerizing despite it just being recording a sound, but just the way they present it, it feels so mesmerizing. I think a lot of times when you watch a show like this where you have basically a section of the characters' lives, you expect when the show or the manga ends, you're like, okay, when it ends, they'll basically enter into the field that they're trying to work for. But in a lot of ways, I think it'd be super interesting to have like a second or third season to see them as adults. Like, I don't think we're going to ever go there or whatever. I think the story will probably continue to be set in high school, but it is one of those things that you can really think about, like, what would they look like as an adult? Because there's a plenty of, like, anime that portrays, like, the creation of anime in the workplace, and it's been really refreshing to see how these amateurs in a school setting are handling it. But I mean, you could have a spin-off, you could have a sequel series, you could have just a future story arc, have them as adults working in the field after they've experienced enough hardships and, creative freedoms as youth in this series, and it'd be so interesting to see what they could pull off. And it definitely always has your mind racing, or at least I know it does for me, to think about what could happen in the future and how this show could probably last for 10 seasons just because you could have half the story set in the school and then half the story set in adulthood, and there'd be plenty of ways to keep their personalities fresh and exciting, but also seeing the different struggles that come with either being a youth, working on anime in their free time / kind of like their job in school while hiding that it is a job, and then also just adulthood and the struggles that come with it. I mean, this is one of those shows that, it's not going to ever get like 10 seasons, but at the same time, you kind of wish it does because it's just a magical experience. I mean, this show, it had a very Shaft style, in my opinion, this episode, with the amount of head tilts. I thought I was watching a Studio Shaft anime for a couple of minutes, but I mean, this show continues to find new ways to inspire us all in the process, and it's why it's one of the best anime this season, and definitely my hidden gem of this anime season. What did everyone think? As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Manga Readers Anime Originals. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.